Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now? It's another Wednesday, and we're back to keep up to speed with all the latest transfer developments and rumours and whispers that we're catching all across everywhere, really. From group chats to the timeline and everything in between, there is a wash of action at the moment, and it feels like in a few different areas. We're finally getting some movement in the attacking positions, for better or for worse. In the video today, we'll preview and we'll analyse exactly what has been moving over the last couple of days and how this might be the turning point where Celtic all of a sudden welcome 2, 3, 4 signings potentially to reinforce the ranks to finalise the squad ahead of what should be a very important season ahead. At any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. We have been smashing it all the way through pre-season with you guys here on the channel. We've had some amazing growth, and if you haven't done so already, please do hit the subscribe button for more content like this. It just means that YouTube knows we're having a good time here on the channel, and they might find some more jungle gyms to come and hang out with us here on the channel as well. Get into the comment section and let me know your thoughts, feelings and takeaways from all the players we're going to discuss and preview in the video today, of course. But let's just get stuck straight into this one, because on this video we can debut our new software that we've been getting up to speed with over the last couple of days to hopefully make things just a little bit shinier, a little bit slicker with the content that we're doing here. And I'm very excited to do some post-match breakdown stuff with this. We've got some amazing tools at the tip of our fingers here. It took a while to reset the depth chart that we've got with the squad, but this is a fun little system. I'm sure we're going to have a great time with it. This is where we find the squad at the minute, and I think just to address a little bit of this before we get into the rumblings and the developments that we've had from the manager and from the rumour mill or the ITK accounts, whatever, is the emergence of Dane Murray, who, with maybe Simpson Pussy, seems to feel like they are the understudy, they are the backup to Carter Vickers. And this was a squad dynamic that we floated out there when we signed JSP initially, because Rodgers has always been a really big fan of Murray, and you only need to hear the comments he's made this week about him in such glowing terms that that's not really changed, and that he believes the best way for his development to be maximised is by staying at the club. So it feels like Murray is very much in the depth chart now. I don't think there is going to be any more movement at centre back, with Trusty and Scales being somewhat being at least accepted within the club as being really jostling it out for that position. I think we're getting a lot out of both players already in this season, and if that can kind of jockey along the rest of the year as we would expect, and kind of as we've seen last year, you know, for me, one of two things will happen. One of them will either stand up above the other one and be clearly better. They will break through, they will realise some more of their potential, they will become a better player, and we'll all see it and feel it in front of us. Or we've got two really competitive guys that are really on a similar standing, that every week really, no matter what one plays or if we need to play both of them, we know domestically and in Europe, and we'll come back to that because that's quite an important Brendan Rodgers reference, that we can trust them to play the game. And yeah, they're not £50 million centre backs, we get that, and blah blah blah, all the rest of it, but for all intents and purposes, both have performed very very well in the biggest matches for us, and I think there's just a bit of an acceptance with that. And the other centre back kind of roles now, Welsh does feel like the odd one out here, doesn't he? But with the homegrown kind of thing, it's maybe not going to change imminently. Let's see how all that does shake out. But I don't see us doing any more in defence. But again, going on off the back of Brendan's comments, we certainly have a big gap in here at left back. Scales has been playing out here. Is that going to be the plan for the full season? It might actually be, and we'll discuss that as well as we go on. The midfield, we've seen Rodgers has kind of doubled down on the fact that he really likes the midfield. He's again asked about Bernardo coming into the Kyriat match, and again is full of praise for him. And really, two to a man, we do have a really nice build. We do have a really nice setup here in midfield, even with Ben Summers maybe being on the tertiary. I'm not too sure where the manager sees him, either as a midfielder or a wide player, but he's probably the only sort of young player that really comes into the reckoning here. It is clearly, without a shadow of a doubt, the forward areas that have all the work to be done. And really, like, over the last couple of weeks, or even if we just take this for, like, we'll talk about wings, right? Because there's a lot to talk about the wings today, of course. We know Jota's injured. We know Maida's like a one-man army at this point. Forrest is the living legend that he is. And Yang is, you know, here for the ride, and he's doing pretty well for the most part. But for the strikers, if we zoom out on this, we made Adam Ida permanent for a significant sum, and he did a decent season last year, okay? But this summer, we've signed Johnny Kenny onto a new 4-year contract, if memory serves me right. And a lot of the chat that came around that from Kenny has been, you know, we want to develop him, and this is the best place for his career, and da-da-da, all that kind of stuff. And when you listen to Kenny's comments, he only wants to be here as well. He is one of us. He is a fan in the team, and, you know, that's all well and good. The club see him as an investment. The way that the club and particularly Brendan Rodgers seem to keep speaking about Shin Yamada also is in that almost investment category of, we didn't spend that much money on him, we're taking him in, having a closer look, we'll kind of see how things go, and yeah, this is a player that we could develop, we could make better. And Callum Osmond is starting to get the same sort of reputation in at the club, with quite a formidable performance in the B team by all accounts, and a player that even when you see him still included in with the first team or whatever, I'm sure he's not going to be buzzing that he's not in as many match days as he would have probably hoped or would have imagined when he did sign, as maybe to be the third striker in his eyes, now to be maybe striker 4. But again, a guy that's seen as an investment from the club. You know, we've went into an academy in England, we've pulled a guy out with some promise who's been on a favourable contractual situation, and you know, between the 4 of these guys, depending on how you want to think of it, I'm just going to call it an £11 million investment. The club has made an £11 million investment into 4 strikers that hopefully 2 of them, at the very least one of them, can be Celtic quality, can play for us in the Champions League, can be the man that leads the line, can be the hero, the guy that sells the shirts, the guy that hits the back of the net. And on paper, that's very good practice, you know, because scoring goals is the hardest thing to do in football. And because of that, this is a topic that we actually wrestled with in quite a bit last week on the channel. It might have been one of the Friday shows, where we were talking about, off the back of the Kenny extension, you know, like the club do see these 3 strikers as investments, and Brendan Rodgers is very firmly a Pep Guardiola, a tiki-taka kind of acolyte, where it's all about possession, building the team, and then find your routes to go with your creative attacking players. Give those creative attacking players the onus, the ability to dictate the game, decide for themselves when they shoot, what passes they make in the final third. The coach's job, the team's job, is to get those guys the ball in the final third. And when you do have that coaching approach, and I'm not saying there's not coaches in the club that do other stuff, shooting drills and whatever, don't get me wrong, but you are then putting the onus, you are giving the agency to the attackers to score the goals, and if they don't do it, then it's on them. And that's why you do have managers like Brendan, and there's many managers like this, but when it comes to those forward areas, they don't tend to accept a lot of responsibility on getting the strikers to score more goals. And you hear these kind of things, like Brendan said actually quite famously not too long ago, where I don't need my striker to score 1,000 goals or whatever. And that's normally the soundtrack to the managers, that, because again, in private he cannot be then acting too differently from that. You imagine that's a public private kind of you know, there's some synergy there. You know, what he says in public marries up with what he says in private. And when that is the case, normally in a lot of situations, not everyone of course, because there's just not many of those guys to go around, you have a leader at the club, you have a veteran perhaps, or you have someone that is clearly a cut above the rest that might go on to pastures new, to, you know, show the guys the ropes, to teach them the way of being a striker, where to find themselves, when to peel off defenders. And then similar to what we've spoke about with the defence previously in a lot more detail, with Simpson Pussy coming in to be that fellow stallion to run the kind of the tail of the tape with Dane Murray. You know, like if you want to be an elite defender in your age group, this is what one looks like, and if you're going to get into the team, you better stay ahead of him. We don't really have the ability to do that with strikers, and because it's such a specialist position, this isn't a role, an archetype, or somebody you can bring into the coaching department that, you know, like those who can't do teach. That doesn't fly with scoring goals. You know, the ones that can teach are the ones that hit the back of the net. And on that show the other day, we spent a good amount of time talking about potential veteran strikers that the club could bring in, Kolo Toure style, that could be those, you know, those masters of the art, you know, kind of thing, to take the apprentices under their wing and show them a thing or two, and, you know, yeah, show them the ropes, teach them the way of the striker, as it were. And Jamie Vardy was at the centre of that last week, because he is the most obvious veteran kind of striker that Celtic could be interested in and might actually go after. All the way back in April, I just seen this coming. Now, back then, I had a lot more optimism that we were going to spend money on a striker, and that's why I just said links to Celtic rather than signing for Celtic, because I just thought there's no chance we actually do get someone that, you know, that kind of move is old Celtic. You know, we have moved forward, we've got money, we're in the Champions League, we've got Brendan, we're not going to be doing anything like this. But it feels like we are. Vardy, by all accounts, is desperate to make the move to Celtic happen. And at 38, about to become 39 years old, Jamie Vardy is just off the back of a full Premier League campaign where he only missed 3 matches from Leicester. Last season for him started against Tottenham with a goal, and a 1-1 draw for Leicester at home against the boy Ange, of course. And over the season, as you can see, he scored some goals, he made some assists, He missed a game against Man United, he missed a game against Liverpool, this was around Christmas, and he missed the final game of the season at Bournemouth. That was away, so his final game of the season was scoring at home in a 2-0 victory over Ipswich. That was his kind of swan song, as it were. But over the last 40 matches, he's played 37, so there's a little bit of the year before that sneaks into the statistics here, and played just under 3,000 minutes. If you go across and look at his Premier League performances last year, he didn't always play 90, he was sometimes 90, sometimes 60, but he was right at the level. And for a striker that was at the bottom team in the league, essentially, I know Ipswich, they were all quite bad, the relegation teams this year, but to still come out with a credible amount of goals, it just shows you like there's some parts of football that age doesn't really interfere with too much. And when it comes to the age thing, like he is 38, about to become 39. I've seen Ibrahimovic come back from what everyone thought was retirement in LA at the age of 37, 38, go back to AC Milan to win the Scudetto. The first Scudetto that Ibrahimovic had won with AC Milan, the first time AC Milan had won a Scudetto in so long. And at 40 years of age, he was coming on with Giroud as well in the ranks, who was like 35 at the time, who's still going. They were still able to, do some stuff in the final third. I think he scored a couple of goals, big Zlatan, but he wasn't super prolific. But guys that have been operating at the very top 1%, 0.5% of the game throughout their entire career, like Jamie Vardy's not lost that much pace by all accounts. And if this could be done on a 1-year deal, I think this is a move, like there's no way that this move gets done and Vardy's on ridiculous money. I think he will come and he will be very happy to fold into whatever wage structure we've gave Joe Hart before, or we would have offered Jeffrey Schlupp or whatever, because Jamie Vardy is a hustler. Jamie Vardy is a proper entrepreneur. He's already got involved in football club management. He's got his own academy, as well as I'm pretty sure he's got some energy drink kind of thing on the go at the moment. And for him, playing for Celtic isn't just about finishing your career in style, that Joe Hart treatment that I think he wants. And I think the Joe Hart thing was a good advert to get guys like Vardy. We all love hearing Wayne Rooney's comments of, I would have definitely signed for Celtic. So moves like this, I like them, but I am not happy with the situation we're in, that we're not spending money on a stellar star forward to come in and just fix the problems, and we don't need to worry about anything. With Vardy, we will really need to pick our minutes. But as I say, financially, I don't think this is a problem for us. This is something that, I've just kind of rambled with. He's going to want that Joe Hart send-off, where he finishes his career a hero with a medal round his neck and with proper fans and making some memories and making some history of his own. But because the guy is like an entrepreneur in the making as well, being linked to Celtic is massive, so there will be no problem getting this deal done. I do not think money is even going to come into the equation at all. You might have forgotten, but Vardy was very close to moving to Arsenal after Leicester won the league, and he signed a mega contract there. He's only just came out of it. Like, this guy is locked. He is cool. He would only be doing this on sporting reasons, which is the only reason, and maybe there's a little bit of after your career commercial stuff that I've just alluded to, fine. Now, when you put Jamie Vardy into the depth and you think, right, he's going to be our Harry Kewell but can play football as well for us, he's going to be our next Carlin Cole, our next Dion Dublin or Ian Wright potentially, but I think Vardy it's not quite the same as Robbie Keane or Bellamy because they were much closer to prime years. But I do think Vardy's more likely to have that sort of Scott Sinclair, you might even say, kind of impact on the squad. Although he won't be able to play 90% of matches. I think as the season winds on, you'll maybe see him play more regularly. But I think early season or early Celtic career, you might see him getting his moments picked and whatever. But then that really does cause a bit of a problem, right? Because if Vardy is brought in to be the Jedi and we're treating the rest of these guys as Padawans, Adam Ida, of course, is probably going to be in a 1-2 situation with Vardy, you would imagine. But can you really have all three of these guys just hanging about for training and getting some odd minutes when maybe Ida doesn't play? You start Vardy, then maybe bring Kenny off the bench, and then the next time around you would bring Shin off the bench, or do that kind of thing. I think it's still a bit crowded, isn't it? Which means I think Osmond is quite likely to maybe get loaned out, or like, this guy can't be brought up from Fulham as an investment to then be put in the B team. Very counterproductive. And I do think Kenny could benefit from a loan, but with Brendan Rodgers talking about the restrictions we've got on international loans, which isn't something I was really aware of, I'm not that keen on sending Kenny on loan anywhere in Scotland. I'd maybe accept St Mirren as an exception, Osmond, I could send on loan anywhere in Scotland and it would probably be decent. It'd be an okay step up. We've seen a lot of players from England that make that move anyway, from Crystal Palaces and Liverpools and Birmingham's and whatever, that they do well in that youth competition, and then the team loans them to Aberdeen, loans them to Dundee, loans them to Motherwell, and they come up here and do alright. So I don't mind Osmond maybe living that life, but we own him kind of thing. I don't mind that. And Shin, you would think almost certainly is going to be buzzing in about the kind of reckoning here. So it's kind of nice that the Vardy kind of completes the strategy, makes the strategy make a lot more sense now. But it's not even short term, it is really immediate term, because you cannot think about having Jamie Vardy this time next year. And if he was like kind of fine, fair enough, let's just take one season at a time with it, I guess. But we would really need some of these other players to be stepping up and then overtaking him in terms of how valuable they are and how important they are to Brendan Rodgers in the starting 11. So this is a really weird one, because it is like, it does make the rest of the business make a tiny bit more sense, but it doesn't really replace Kyogo, it doesn't really fix any problems. And the big caveat that the Vardy move comes from is we then go really after some wingers. Because come hell or high water, Brendan Rodgers will not acknowledge Betting the Grant as a potential wing option. Yes, he's kind of putting them out there, but he's always talking about it as, look at how hard done to the squad is, that we're having to put Benji out in the right wing to finish the match off. And I think he's going to continue to do that until we get the wingers in. And then similar to Dyson Maeda playing up front and not being a striker, if you remember all the way back when Brendan used to just deny it, because he didn't want the board to click on this guy can play up front as well. I don't think he wants them to click on that Negren is actually a winger, because he wants to play him in midfield and he wants more wingers to come into the squad. And it feels now that Michele Ange Balickwisha is more than just the rumour that won't go away, but it feels like there's some proper meat on the bones. He started the season with a game against Charleroi, USG, and since then he's played 4 games this season, been very effective in the attack, winning penalties, scoring a goal and whatever as well, and he's been a 90-minute player. So this is a player we were worried about injury-wise, and maybe motivation, form-wise, it was a little bit undetermined, like how good will the guy be now, and where is he at in his career at 24 with, there was some rumours that he may have had a move to France in him, but that quickly went away, and it really does feel now with Sasha Tavolieri coming, or Tavolieri, I always trip my tongue up on his name, confirming that this is like locked up. So they're just waiting on Celtic pushing the button, or it's something to do with him and Antwerp. There's just one piece of this that's been missing, it feels like, for maybe the last couple of weeks or the last month, that has really stopped the deal being finalised, because the medical was scheduled, and this has been confirmed. We remember those rumours like 2 weeks ago. He wasn't going to be in the squad for a weekend, he'd missed training, he then actually ended up playing the match. The medical obviously got cancelled or rescheduled because of some sort of internal issue, maybe around bonuses, contracts, that kind of thing. So I actually think Balickwisha is going to be a Celtic player now alongside Jamie Vardy. And Balickwisha is a guy that can play up front, can play left wing, can play right wing, is very versatile all the way across the front line. So in the absence of Jota, who I think if Jota was fit and available, he would be playing right wing and Maeda would be left. And depending on how the other transfers go, Maeda and Jota can play both sides. They do have a stronger side, of course, we recognise that. I think Balickwisha would probably end up being the same, and it might also be the left, so all their favoured positions might be the left hand side, but a guy that has the versatility to play right, we could play him left and have Dyson on the right until Jota comes back. It gives us a few options, a few different solutions potentially, and this really does then get the forward line almost ready. But I do think with Vardy coming in, Balickwisha, we are still missing another forward. And rumours are intensifying that we are in pursuit of Calvin Stengs. Now, Feyenoord value him between, depending on what reports you believe, between 9 and 15 million euros. He's just off the back of a big injury, but this is a player that has been lighting up the Dutch league for a couple of years. Went to France and played a lot, but it didn't really work out for him at that level. Nice were kind of a bit of a joke at the time as well, to be honest with you. You only need to ask Kasper Schmeichel about that. But he left France, went back to Feyenoord under Arne Slot. And again, if you've watched Liverpool in the Premier League, if you remember our games against this team, which you can see here, he scored against us. I think it was a free kick. I think it was the free kick against Joe Hart right before half time. He was very, very good against us. And in Arne Slot's Feyenoord team that were all conquering domestically and very impressive on the continent, he was the main guy. He was the main player in attacking midfield that was making the difference. So much so, he actually broke into the senior Dutch team. Now, he has played against Gibraltar and spanked them. That's kind of whatever, right? I guess anyone that plays for Holland kind of has a fair crack at doing that. He didn't play as well at Celtic Park because obviously we won the game at the end. And although at Feyenoord was quite firmly an attacking midfielder, but had a little bit of free rein to drop into some different pockets, because the way Arne Slot's midfield worked, it was Timber, We don't need to guess, we can just check. And Zerouki. And as a kind of double pivot base with the back four, the way they'd kind of structured that, Stengs just had free roam to go kind of anywhere and was devastating for Feyenoord, against us and in general. Now, he's not returned back to new season activity for Feyenoord, but before all this happened, Calvin Stengs was a right winger, and Calvin Stengs coming into the Celtic team to be a right winger, and we know he's got the versatility to play the Negren position, and I dare say he could play on the left if it was absolutely needed, but this is a guy that is a right winger, and a right winger with a left foot, which Brendan Rodgers loves. This is a guy that's got extreme pace, is really tall as well, like for a winger. He's got everything to be a top level player, to go to the Premier League, one of the big 5 leagues again in European football, and he's definitely going to be sitting there feeling, after doing so well in that Feyenoord team, Arne Slot, everything we've spoke about, you know, he's not really had his big break to go back to one of the big leagues, and he'll certainly look at us as being the perfect gateway into the English Premier League. And if he does like really good with us in the Champions League or whatever, he could end up, you know, into Italy or Germany or whatever like that as well. Because being successful at Feyenoord and then Celtic, you know, has a good bit of pedigree in it, you might even say, and we just got a good history of sending players down south and they do pretty well. So I think he will be really motivated for this move because of the background and everything associated with it. And really, let's just take a second to look at this. If we've got Stengs, Balickwisha and Jamie Vardy all coming in, like, we are cooking in a big, big way. We've got so many options. We've got so much quality and depth. And yeah, both, you know, there is a bit of fragility around maybe some of the injury records of these guys gone in years gone by. But proper quality when everyone's fit and available is undeniable here. I think the team is stronger than what it was at the beginning of last season if we get Balickwisha and Stengs to complement the Vardy move. If it's just Vardy and then just one of these wingers, I don't think we're quite there as thinking we're actually stronger this year makes a change. I think it will still be a wee bit of jury's out on the development of some of these players, how quickly Jota can come back from injury, how long can Forrest maintain legend mode, and what can Yang actually do across the season for us. But if we do get all these reinforcements in, we're going to be cool up front. That just then leaves the biggest question mark of the team to be defence. And Brendan has actually shared really what the criteria is for the backup left back at Celtic. Defensive qualities is the number one thing. They have to be good enough to defend against Yamal Lamina, which to me and you is Lamine Yamal, right? The best player in the world. That's what we're thinking about for the backup left back, is if Tierney was out, could we play them against Lamine Yamal and be comfortable? It's as simple as that. That's all we need to find, is a backup left back out there that's going to be happy to play understudy to Tierney, that if we had to play against Lamine Yamal. Now, a player we've been often linked to in not really the credible section of the rumour mill, a player you guys have been really hot on in the live chat and in the comment section, Keita Kosugi, looked lined up to be moving to French giants Lille, but the reports I'm seeing today is that move isn't happening, that move is breaking down. He's 19 years of age, certainly further on in his career than in Amura, but big question mark, could he defend against Lamine Yamal? I'm not too sure. The only statistics, the only kind of information I've got on him is playing against teams in the Europa Conference League last year. Last year he played against Jadon Sancho, Kieran Dewsbury Hall, Malo Gusto, Reece James. The game before that, he would have been up against Noni Madueke and Enzo Fernandez, maybe a wee bit of Reece James and Jadon Sancho as well. And that's kind of the top end opponents that he's ever played against. So is he closer to being ready for Lamine Yamal than Inamura? Probably. Is he definitely going to be ready to face off against Lamine Yamal? I wouldn't bank on it. And, you know, I'm kind of joking with this, right? Because Brendan's used a really extreme example. But, you know, all jokes aside, this is the element of scouting for Celtic for content for me on the channel that I do find really hard. Because how I put my name against someone and go, that guy would be great for us. And hopefully we can see it, whether they sign for us or they go somewhere else. You can see, oh, that guy was a good player. And that is always the biggest question mark is, yeah, I know some of these guys would definitely do excellent in Scotland for us, especially just playing for Celtic, dominating the ball, etc. But in those make or break games, derbies, Europe, would they, you know, could you play them and be comfortable with it? And sincerely, if we're looking for backup left backs that fit that criteria, it is honestly a fool's errand. I don't think we're going to find someone that we would be that confident in playing in the Champions League to play backup left back to Tierney. I genuinely don't. Now, I'm going to float this out here, right? I still think we are going to be shopping for a left back, and if the criteria is to be good against defending against Lamine Yamal, then we just need to go shopping in La Liga, don't we? And quite simply, I'm not too sure there is even a La Liga player that we could just go and pluck in that would be really happy to fill into that position. I'm not too sure. Even looking across Europe, there is some, emerging kind of talents, some younger left backs that we could look at. But again, if the criteria is they have to be able to defend against Lamine Yamal, they're probably not going to be worth the money. But we should be looking at someone that ideally has ambition, and I would have thought the thing to do would have been pull another Alex Valle move, pulling a high value loan from one of the big teams in Europe that we've already done for Simpson Pussy, who by all accounts isn't a left back, can't play a left back, and we've maybe used up one of those loan spots that we can't use anymore. So although we can all agree, Brendan even is the same as well, we need a left back. Brendan's not even sure if Inamura's going to be loaned out, and he's stating that defensive criteria is the main thing, and we're seeing a lot of scales at left back. And if Rodgers was to say like, would I be confident in playing him in a league match and getting the same output from him that we get from Kieran Tierney? No, I wouldn't. That would tell you that it is about, filling in at second string and, keeping the style of play, keeping the quality from the wide areas as close to consistent as you can imagine. But because he has used the defensive element of it, it makes me think that he's mentally prepared to play Scales at left back in the Champions League if we've got a big game and Tierney can't make it for any reason, and then just defend the castle with the defence don't. Although Scales, we did see it against Falkirk, he was happy to bounce up the pitch. He'll probably be told on those occasions, don't be doing that, pal, you're going to be defending. So yeah, a bit of funny, I don't know if it's funny, but a bit of interesting development there. Maybe Inamura gets kept as an insurance policy to Scales. Maybe we don't actually sign another left back. But I think if we do make these types of moves in the attack positions here, I'll be quite happy with the business we've done eventually, as long as it doesn't blow up in our face. And I think there's still, if we hammer Kairat, at point of recording that game hasn't happened yet, if we hammer Kairat, and we're going into the second leg pretty confident, you might see a bit more movement. And then once the job is signed, sealed and delivered, I wouldn't be surprised to see 2 or 3 of these guys at Lennox Town in no time, holding up scarves and doing interviews. And then we'll just about have a couple of days left to maybe try and find a left back. That'll probably be the main topic of conversation for next week, given this is the way things are likely to shake out. Let me know your thoughts and feelings on, Balickwisha eventually getting done. This potential move for Stengs, where I'm not sure if I finished that point properly, but I could see that being like a loan with an option to buy. I think I did say that earlier, but I was kind of bumping it at different points. But, we maybe pay £4 million for the loan, and then there's a buy option of 10 on the back end, or, whatever. I could see Celtic living that kind of life. I think Stengs would be up for it. I think I did kind of start to mention this without rounding it off. But yeah, I think Stengs will be a loan option to buy. I think Balickwisha, we could just see the button get pressed on that. 5-6 million euros, and he comes, and Jamie Vardy on a Joe Hart wage packet to get the retirement package at Celtic. I could see all that happening quite quickly. Will that be enough? Would you be happy with it? And anything else you want to share is always welcome in the comment section. If you haven't done so already, please do subscribe for more content like this on screen, and now some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Hail, hail, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.